Has losing money been the reason why you have not jumped into real estate? Well, guess what? Dean Rogers lost over six figures before he ever got his head above water. Now he's one of the top real estate investors in Central California. If you want financial freedom, time freedom, and want to leave a legacy for generations to come, you probably have heard real estate investing is the place to do that. How do you get started? What do you have to do? When's the right time? If you are looking for those answers, you've come to the right place. My name's Kyle Stanley, and this is Fearless Flipping. My mission is to help you learn this business and conquer real estate investing. Hey guys, thanks for checking in with Fearless Flipping. I'm Kyle Stanley, and it is Thanksgiving week, so this is our only episode for the week. We hope you get a ton of value out of it. You will, because Dean Rogers, a former NFL player, is here having amazing success with real estate, but not with some bumps along the way. So, not without some bumps along the way, I should say. But before we get into his story, I had made a promise, and I am fulfilling that promise. Anyone who leaves a review or a comment on our channels talking about what they've learned or what value they've gotten out of this channel, whether it's the podcast or YouTube channel, you are going to be mentioned on the show. So from Income Hacker, Kyle is the master of Airbnb. If you want to learn a simple way to get started in real estate Airbnb, this is the podcast. Kyle is the Yoda master of Airbnb. No matter if you are a new seasoned pro, you will learn from this podcast. Thanks, Kyle. And that is Ryan Wright, the Income Hacker. He's actually considering doing some Airbnb over in Utah. So I'm really excited to be talking with him about that. So if you have a way that you've been helped in these channels at all with our content, whether even it's on social media, we want to hear what that's all about. Review us, share what you are learning, or on the YouTube channel, make sure to talk about your deals, talk about what you're learning, talk about anything. And as long as it's going to provide some value back to our listeners and provide them with some knowledge of what we can do to help them out, and listening to this podcast, that's what we're all about. So anyway, let's get to Dean Rogers. He is a Central Valley local, but he has also gone through the same educational program in Fortune Builders as I did, but he's got a nice little twist there of just how deep he got into a relationship with the Fortune Builders founders and owners. Let's take it away with Dean. Hey, coming in from San Diego, California, Dean Rogers, who is also from the Central Valley. It's crazy, Dean, how like you just get into this business and it seems like left and right there's people from your own backyard. But excited to have you on the show.
It's true, man. Hey, glad to be here too, man.
So as always, got to start off with my favorite question. What is your most interesting or maybe your weirdest real estate investing story?
Yeah, Kyle. So mine isn't the happy one, or one that was fun or exciting. Mine that's probably good for your viewers is a life lesson, and
Okay.
the punchline of it is you need to listen to your gut. If you got like this weird feeling, you think something's off, or someone just seems like they're off, you should definitely listen to that. And so, kind of the ins and outs of that story is there was an opportunity for me to basically buy into a deal, and it was a piece of dirt, piece of land, to do new construction and build a new house. And it was buying it from this one guy who's going to do the project, the lot next door. He had all these things in place he had already paid for. There's already value in the work he had already done. The short story is all of it was a lie. It was all he was a fake and fraud.
Oh
He had
no.
conned dozens of people, millions of dollars, and even had like sexual harassment charges.
Oh
Like
my God.
this guy has criminal charges against him at this point. And basically, by me buying this piece of dirt and over a years of working through all of these problems, at the end sold the dirt that nothing had changed for a loss, and up losing $187,000.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
Dean.
yeah.
Oh, that literally is a punch to the gut. I'm hurting for you right now. How
I
did you
still
recover
hurt.
from that one?
Yeah, the only way you can, you got two choices. You put your head in the dirt and cry about it. I had many nights where my heart was just pounding because just the uncertainty, the unknown of what was coming next, what horror story was around the corner, that I was going to come up against, what challenge, you know, that was so hard at times. But I realized that I either put my head in the hole or, I fight like hell. And so I did just that. And, I spent the next however long it took just fighting and focusing on finding deals, finding how to make more money, right? There's not much you can do after you've lost it. You can only, recover from that. So did just that, focus on that, and came out of the hole, and, just shooting out from there, and, a lot of great success from then. So that was a painful life experience. Listen to
Right.
your gut. Something feels
Yeah.
off, don't do it.
And
Just
now,
don't, you don't need to.
was that your first or one of your first deals that you'd ever done?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No. I won't tell you about the first couple of deals I did
Well,
because they
I'm
were.
just thinking if that's your first ever deal, I mean, the amount of like just I want to quit type of feeling would have come over. And a lot of, I'm sure, I told you so's, but I mean, did you get a lot of I told you so's even at that point when, you got hit that hard?
Yeah, so I got a lot of I told you so's from my wife. She's got probably one of the best gut feelings out of anybody I know. She truly does. She's got like a sixth sense, and mine, I can hear it. I know it's there, but sometimes I just don't listen to it as well as I know I should. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I want to think everyone has good intention, because that's the way I live my life, and try to do right by everybody. But not everybody in the world is the same way. So my wife, she can pick up on that stuff. She told me, something's off, don't do it. Had one other person tell me that too, and I was focused on the deal and the numbers, and that's a lesson to everybody. There's no deal that you have to do. There's always another deal.
Yeah.
Don't rush into a deal. Don't rush into doing a deal with someone that doesn't mesh with you and you don't feel is the right fit.
I think that's a good point because especially, right now in a very competitive market where it's tough to find deals, you see a lot of these, rehabs or potential rehabs that are going on the MLS. And I don't know about you, but I'm just like looking at these deals that ended up closing on the MLS. I'm like, how is this person making any money? And the only thing
Yeah,
I can think of is that they're just so desperate to make a deal happen that they just want to be able to say, I got a deal, and they end up overpaying, or like you say, you put on the blinders, you find out that this guy's a con artist, all those things of desperation just to get a deal, and it ends up not being a deal at all. So
yeah,
I think that's the lesson to learn there. Yeah.
yeah. So good way
Cool.
to start it out, and scare people a little bit. Make sure that they understand. Trust your gut. You don't have to do a deal. There's another deal waiting for you. So do what you think makes sense, and trust your instincts.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's get into your story. So you're a California boy, but you also found your way onto an NFL team. So I want to hear a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump into some real estate stuff.
Yeah, so California boy through and through. It couldn't get more California than growing up in Visalia, California, where you're surrounded by nothing but farms and dairies. Waking up in the summer to the smell of cow butt, and when you don't smell it, you feel like you kind of miss it a little bit. So that's when you know you're a true Central Valley boy there.
Oh gosh, I've never
Um,
missed it. So that's just you.
Maybe I'm the weird one. Um, so grew up in there in Visalia, small town living, um, and always loved and excelled at sports. Coming out of college, I went to get a full ride scholarship to UC Davis, played
Hmm,
football there,
nice.
got a good degree. So that's, can hang that on the shelf as something that's helped me through life for sure. Coming out of college, was scouted by the NFL probably since my junior year. Who knows, if they were doing it sooner, but started noticing around junior year. Coming out of that, was the year of the lockout. So very interesting experience.
Oh, I'm
You
sure.
know, was talking to a handful of teams before the draft, and didn't get drafted. So right after that, the lockout happens. Just dead silence. So I went to Fresno, started training with a handful of different Fresno guys. You know, there's a couple quarterbacks, Tom Brandstater, you know, Ryan Colburn, Tyler Klutz, you know, big name there and has been in the NFL a long time. A handful of other guys there, Kenny Wiggins. So a lot of good guys to train with. And then coming out of that, you know, once the lockout lifted, got the call from the Chargers. He
Nice.
said, I was just about to go to the mountains with my brother-in-law. My wife had gone on a bachelorette party. My parents had gone out of town. Was living with my parents at the time, just out of college, and get a call from my agent. He said, "Hey, the Chargers are just about to call you. Are you ready to go?" I'm like, "Holy crap!" So they call me, and they say you're flying out. You know, next thing in the morning. I almost went to the mountains where I wouldn't have had reception.
Wow.
Um, so so next thing I'm out there, and so I was with them. That was an amazing experience. I mean, talk about lifestyle and just getting a whole different, you know, perspective on the game and the world. You know, coming out of it, you know, it felt amazing to know that I could play at that level. But I went from playing tight end to fullback, and so now I was beating my head in for a living versus being, you know, kind of an athletic tight end that I was.
Sure.
And they still use me athletically, and you know, Norv Turner loved me. Hey, you're gonna have a long career, but I was like, I might be dead at the end of my career if I'm beating my head in. So decided to hang up the cleats and take on the, you know, professional working career, and moved to San Francisco. Started working there, and immediately fell into a job. One of my buddies I played college football with told me about this tech company called Workday, and so I was like, hey, I'll check it out. Sounds like something I'm interested in. Just before they went public, boom, got right in. Amazing place, really kind of the platform that launched me, allowed me to start my real estate career. But what I learned, Kyle, is after just 1 year of being there, I was working my ass off.
Mm,
You know, was contributing and providing a lot of value, but my pay didn't increase exponentially.
right.
I was like, well, something feels off here. You know, I'm working my ass off, and but I didn't see an incremental, you know, exponential increase. So literally went online, Googled how to get started in real estate. I knew I'd liked real estate. Fell upon Sean Terry. Sean Terry changed my life forever. His podcast, his free podcast, just like yours, you know, started listening to it and became absolutely obsessed. Within
Mm,
3 months, I did my first deal. A little
wow.
fun story on that, and maybe this would have been a more happy-go-lucky start to the call. A fun story of how I got started was I didn't do my first deals in my local market. I was living in San Francisco. I didn't do it where I grew up in Visalia. It was actually in Arizona,
Wow.
where Sean Terry was describing his market. He was telling me exactly what he was doing. I said, well, why do I need to reinvent anything? I'm going to do exactly what he's doing in his market. He told me where the good neighborhoods are, everything. So I started, you know, looking for deals there, got a couple deals under contract, and then I couldn't find a buyer, but I was following all of his steps. So I submitted my property I had under contract on his website, and his acquisition manager called me right away. Started talking to him. His name was Stan. I'm pretty sure he's still his acquisition manager or somewhere in his company. And so I'm talking to Stan. Stan gets me, you know, connected with Sean, and they find a buyer. Boom, we make $12,000. We split it. I make my first $6,000 in 3 months. I was
Wow.
stoked. I was
Wow.
at the office when escrow closed, and I just yell. I'm super excited. And my buddy, who I told about the, you know, what I was doing, he's like, "You just closed the deal, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, I just made $6,000." I was stoked. So,
That's
um,
amazing. Well, I
so
think what's awesome about what you just said there, Dean, is that I mean, you took into action what you were learning on a podcast, just like this. You know, the whole point of what I'm doing here with this podcast is I want people to be able to have the knowledge and the desire, the courage to be able to go out there and do it themselves. So you're living proof that you can do that if you listen and learn enough from something like this. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anybody can do this. It's simply about taking action, learning from your lessons, and continuously moving forward. Most business owners, most people in any type of business are going to continuously make mistakes, but it's about learning from that, moving forward, and adapting, right? And I was talking to you earlier about being flexible. So I feel like that story is, rings through and throughout my entire journey so far. And I think it makes sense probably to tell you about kind of each step and how it's progressed and the learning lessons throughout there. So from working with Sean Terry, doing my first couple deals with him, that was incredible to put some money in the bank, and then just have a little bit of money to put towards marketing. So I then started marketing, doing exactly what he was saying in his podcast. So I would literally like set up my phone and my computer and have it. So I'd have my finger on the pause and play button for the podcast, and then I would go into list source and follow each and every step that he would go through. So that's how I started doing my marketing. Now, when I started doing my marketing, I started getting calls, and then I would do the same thing with how to talk to sellers, and I would take ferocious notes on like, how do I talk to these people? And it was so nerve wracking. And I'd get calls while I was at work, and at lunchtime I'd go run out and take calls for an hour and trying to get on the phone with people. So that's the same kind of stuff that just about anybody has to do just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
or doing it before work or after hours. And so I did that, and then I started getting some deals, and then I started to market those deals to buyers. Now I started putting bandit signs out. I'd get calls from buyers taking their information down. So the first couple deals I sold from marketing in the Visalia area was to a guy who was a local cash buyer and had been doing it for years. Well, flash forward to today, he's my business partner.
Wow.
So the guy who bought my first Visalia deal, and it was on Mooney Boulevard in Visalia. He bought it. I made I think it was $8,500, and he was squeezing me, telling me, "Oh, dude, this is a skinny deal." At the time, it might have been a skinny deal. Today, it'd be a great deal. I think he made 30 grand or something on
Oh, wow.
it, and it was an easy deal for him. So um,
So how did the evolution of him becoming your business partner, how did that happen?
yeah, so it turns out, I keep selling him a couple deals, right? And he's like, "Hey, I like what you're doing. You seem like you know how to find deals." And so he reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about doing some flips together?" I'm like, "Well, hey, I'm just getting started. I don't really have any money." He's like, "Hey, don't worry about it. I'll cover the costs. You just keep finding the deals, and we'll joint venture it." I was like, "Okay, sure." So he was feeling like it's kind of slowing down in the market. Now, think about today's market. It was still a better market than today, but he wanted to explore other areas. He said, "What about Arizona?" Well, here's a flash forward to my first flips. So my first flips, we buy I think 8 properties in like 3 months in
Wow.
Arizona. I've got a couple guys looking for deals. I'm looking for deals. We wholesaled one. We sold two for a profit. Maybe it was five that we bought. Yeah, I think it was five. Wholesaled one, sold two for a profit, and sold two for a loss. And they were big losses. They were like $100,000 in losses.
Oh gosh.
We own these properties, Kyle, for over a year. We owned them for like a year and a half. There's a lot into that story. It's like every like horror story of being from afar, bad contractor who's stole and cheated, and
Uh,
you had to bring in other contractors. the work that the contractor did was not up to code and horrible, had to redo work. The holding time and the holding costs from the lender, paying points for extensions, all that added up to a lot of money. And for me at the time, not having that money, it was like, well, what do I do now? So same thing as I learned later in life with another story is I got to go find more deals. So I did that.
Sure.
That was my first experience at flips.
So
And
really,
then
really quick, just to stick on that contractor part, you kind of got screwed with the contractor, so you had to hold on to it longer. Your holding costs were longer. Had you actually had the right contractor in the beginning, would you have made money? And B, how did you learn from that in terms of finding the right contractors for the future?
yeah, so many learning lessons from there. Those were the two major like life events I could call them in this journey. The way that you can avoid having a bad contractor is just properly vetting them,
Mm,
seeing what their work looks like, talking to many referrals, making sure that you're on the same page with all the same terms. Um, fortunately, I know we've talked about this before. Just before I actually started doing these flips, I had just joined Fortune Builders.
yep.
And part of what they teach you is to have the right paperwork when it comes to contractors. So I had what they call their 6 critical documents when it comes to contracting and doing a remodel. And because I had those in place, it saved us a lot of money that we could have
Good.
potentially lost by this contractor, doing us wrong. And so in that case, making sure you have the right documents, making sure you vet the contractor, not rushing into starting the project, even though you want to get it started, is really important.
That's good. Hey, Fearless Flipping community, we are taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Airbnb. For those of you that don't know, I have built much of my residual income around Airbnb, despite a lot of other investors being really excited about long-term renters. I was not. I saw an opportunity with Airbnb to get to my goals faster, to get more cash flow, and to pay off my houses quicker too. So instead of being really happy like a lot of other investors are with $200 to $300 of cash flow every single month, I've turned my renters and rentals into over $1,000 on average of cash flow every single month. So if you want to learn more about Airbnb, my systems, where I pick my Airbnbs, how I communicate with guests. Maybe you've already got Airbnb as a business on the side right now, but you want to take it to the next level. I am absolutely here to help you. You can book a free consultation with me about Airbnb. Learn more by booking at fearlessflipping.com/consultation, and you get me for 30 minutes for free. That's right, 30 minutes absolutely free. And that's once again fearlessflipping.com/consultation, and I'm looking forward to helping you conquer Airbnb investing. Well, Dean, I think people are starting to hear now that no matter who you connect with, you find a way to throw money signs into their eyes and they want to do deals with you, whether it was Sean Terry or now your business partner. But there's another person, and you've already kind of hinted towards them with the Fortune Builders, that has now become a friend of yours. And really, I got to ask too, as the backup, have you done any deals with him? But I'm going to let you just kind of share that story of how you really got connected with Fortune Builders, and especially Than Merrill and the Asajan brothers.
Yeah. So the short story is, I didn't know anything about these guys or their company, Fortune Builders, big national company. They're actually locally based here in San Diego. Turns out that I was using FreedomSoft as a wholesaler. I was using FreedomSoft as my CRM, managing my leads. And Than Merrill is a co-owner in it with Preston Neely. And I'm not sure if he sold it off at this point or anything, but they had my data. And so someone who I actually know, and I'll get to that part, someone who I know at this point, he cold called me just out of the blue and said, hey, I want to tell you about this company and, this education. They went through this qualification to see I was the right fit, all these things. Well, they asked me when I said, yeah, I'm interested. They said, well, how much money do you have? I said, well, how much money do I need to have, to join? They said somewhere between, 15 to 25,000. I said, well, I'll do it for 15. And we still joke to this day about how that all goes down, because they have different tiers of,
Right.
like the membership, but they didn't really sell me on that. They just were asking, about how much I
Sure.
could put up. And so I didn't even know what I really signed up for. I just knew I wanted to be a part of it. That's how much, I believed in what
Nice.
their mission was. So when I landed, I was on vacation in Hawaii when this all went down. When I landed, I paid for it, signed up. Flash forward to, I'm living in San Francisco. My wife and I decided we want to move to San Diego. So I'm like, great, Fortune Builders, they're in San Diego. Maybe
Right.
I can, get to know these guys. So I was bold enough to just reach out to them on Facebook and reach out to JD Asasian and say, hey, where do you guys work out? Because I'm a football guy. I know fans played in the NFL, thinking that maybe there's a connection here. And so he says, hey, we work out at this local CrossFit gym. So first thing I do when I move to San Diego, literally the first
Become
thing
a
I
member
do,
at that CrossFit
I
gym.
go, I hunt this gym down. I start out because I want to work out, obviously too. My wife and I start working out there, and turns out like half of their company, works out there. So I got to meet so many amazing, great people, and naturally got to meet Than, Paul, Conrad, JD, all the guys who run the business, and they're amazing people. They honestly are genuine people, humble people. They have a servant mentality, and because of it, they become very, very successful. And so, you asked, have we done any deals together? They have an annual event called Real Estate Ignite, and they have, a part of their program. They have, at this point, just about monthly boot camps that you can
Mhm.
physically go to. But they have a big annual event, and that's what I've gone to every single year. I've been a part of Fortune Builders, and one of their events, they just started really. They were wanting to do more deals with some of the members, and they say, "Hey, if anyone's got a deal, and they want us and our team to look at it and underwrite it, and potentially, be the financer of it, and be like the joint venture money partner of it, and you basically just bring the deal, and we'll do the rest." Um, that's what they were saying. And literally, once I came off, they were done with that and we left. A deal fell on my lap right in Tulare, California. And, it was, we were buying it at a great price for $1.1 million. And we've now, at this point, owned it for like 3.5 years.
Wow.
And so we had a tenant in there for 3 years. They just moved out. We're now releasing it up, and so yeah, do own a commercial building with those guys. They were the money partners in it, and in the JV deal, type of
Wow.
a situation, and brought the deal. And so I've been working with tenants and stuff like that. And like I said, they're great guys. And funny enough, I was just telling you earlier, so I run into these guys, I talk to them, and now we got kids at the same school. We just started our oldest son at pre-K, and turns out we got kids at the same school as Stan, and so I'll see him around, and he's just a big fun-loving guy, and so we'll just
Nice.
joke around when we see each other.
I'm surprised he hasn't offered you a job over there yet.
Well, they did ask me. I
Yeah,
actually
I
did.
figured.
I did do an interview with one of their like right hand men within the company, one of the vice presidents, and you know, I I think at some point we probably still could, do something together in a working relationship. So who knows? But yeah,
Wow.
they're great guys.
Well, hey, once again, like I said, leading into that question, opportunity doesn't find you. You seem to just find opportunity and bring it on and go for it. You're bold, you're fearless, you're going for it. And so now with your actual business, kind of bringing it back home to what you're doing. It seems like every time I'm opening up Facebook, you've got a new deal or a new rental that is cash flowing you. So kind of bring us up to speed of what your goals right now in your business are. And I'm seeing so many rentals that you're picking up. Is that really like, are you hitting the BRRRR method really hard? Like, what is it that you're trying to do right now the most?
Yeah, it's funny you were saying that. I think we might be getting another deal here. I just got a text from my acquisitions manager, so
Nice.
we're trying to lock this one in. Um, so kind of the evolution of where we gone since, wholesaling and then finding my business partner, screwing up big time on my first couple flips, doing flips, and then you know at some turning point in time, I've always been the deal finder. um, one point in time back in 2017, I really, poured the gasoline on the fire, and really upped our marketing spend, and our flipping business really exploded at that point. That was kind of the turning point to really start seeing the momentum I was expecting. And all the way through 2018, market's been great. At the very last quarter, Q4 of 2018, the interest rates had kind of gone up a little bit and slowed down the buying, and I really felt that and saw that.
Hmm.
Offers just all of a sudden were nowhere to be seen on flips that we had on the market that were perfectly fine and priced right. And so I just had this gut feeling that I wanted to be out of that business. I wanted to be done with flipping. Not that we still have not done, we've still done flips if it makes sense and our risk is low. But I just had a gut feeling, hey, we're really good at finding deals. Let's focus on that. So we shifted our entire business model January of 2019 to be solely focused on wholesaling first, as well as at the beginning of 2018 had a realization that I could be flipping all day long. Money comes in, money comes right back out. Money comes in, money comes right back out. And it was a never-ending cycle, especially with us doing 20 to 30 deals, active flips at one time. We evaluate every deal in this order. We look at it from a rental first. Does it make sense as a rental? If so, we buy it and keep it. We'll use private lenders, to finance that. And we'll get into strategy around, how we're financing our deals and what our strategy is. And then we'll look at it next as a wholesale or flip. So that's kind of our order of evaluating a deal at this point. And we're up to 33 rentals now.
Nice. Just since the beginning of the year?
Since beginning of 2018.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and anything that makes sense, we're buying. And so as many as those deals we find, we'll keep. And we've just been doing that. So that's keeping us pretty much busy from a project standpoint. And then everything else is just really like kind of perfecting the business and process around the transaction based business of wholesaling, which we feel like we do a pretty good job at. We've got really great relationships with buyers. I feel like we do an exceptional job at just being able to get in front of sellers and then also building that relationship. In end of 2017, we hired an acquisition manager, and or maybe it was the beginning of 2018, and we decided that we were going to basically take all the leads I was taking in and give them to him, which was really scary for me because
Sure.
I that's how we're eating.
Yeah. Releasing
And that was,
control.
yeah, and that was my baby. So it took a while. It took like 6 months or so for me to truly hand it over to him. And once he did, then he really took off. A funny story from that, we had put out the application to hire, and the person who we hired is actually someone who was a wholesaler we were actively buying deals from.
Oh, wow.
We had maybe bought 10 deals from him, maybe a little bit less. up to that point. He had made some great money selling to us, knew we were great buyers, and wanted to be a part of the team. And then, you know, middle of 2018, we hired an office manager, and that really took off the load off of our work for, you know, the little minor details
Sure.
of the ins and outs of the business. And we have a new office manager we just hired 3 months ago in place of the previous one, and she's a firecracker. She's now working in the leads with us, so we're all now 4 of us collectively just focused on finding deals with a hyper focus. And, you know, in her first 3 months, she's already done 3 deals, closed 3
Wow.
deals.
I've got a question about your rentals. Are they all there in your backyard? Are they in Central California? Where are they at?
Yeah, good question. So all my rentals are in the Central Valley. So Visalia, Tulare, Exeter, Hanford, you know, all those areas kind of in that central Tulare and Kings County, excuse me, are where we have rentals. And the reason we did that, you know, the reason I don't flip in San Diego, although I live there, is at the time and point where I moved to San Diego, we had a lot of momentum in the Central Valley. You know, I had put in a lot of effort, and rather than trying to feel cool about doing a nice, like, you know, modern coastal flip in San Diego that I could show off to my friends, I'd rather go buy a 50,000 POS in, you know, Farmersville or something like that, because that's where, for me, I felt comfortable.
Right.
I wasn't going to sleep worried about the numbers, or, oh, we better meet this deadline, because, you know, the house was $700,000. You know, I just focused on where the money was and where we were seeing success. You know, I didn't have to try to fit you know, a circle into a square hole or anything like that. So for me, I feel like I know the area, even though, you know, I don't see any of our houses really at this point, unless I'm driving through town and just feel like driving by something. But I just have you know, the most confidence I could possibly have when we look at something, and just knowing the numbers. And then my business partner there, he's, you know, boots on the ground. If we really need to look at something, he's looking at it. You know, and I manage everything from afar.
Well, Dean, you know, if you're used to listening to this show, you already know this, but this might be news to you. I'm the Airbnb guy, so I got to know, are any of those properties Airbnb, or have you looked into that at all?
None of them are Airbnb. I have friends in San Diego that are heavy into Airbnb. Yeah, so just catching up to the education world is, you know, the concept of, I think, master leasing is what they call it. So
yeah, rental arbitrage.
Yeah, exactly. So someone will basically go fully lease out someone's Airbnb or their house or whatever, and guarantee them a certain amount, and then that person then goes and you know, does the Airbnb rent out and the hosting, and makes additional money on top of that. So have buddies that are doing that here locally and are a big part of, you know, the conferences and stuff. To me, it's very attractive. I know people that are, you know, living a lifestyle because of it. They're able to go stay at their own Airbnbs, you know, a couple days out of the month, and they're in beautiful places. I want to be a part of that. I just feel like I'm not an expert in it. And if I've learned a few lessons in my life so far in my career, it's like, you know, I got to stay in my lane and stick at what I'm good at. But I would be very interested to be alongside an expert, you know, like yourself, and you know, tiptoe into that with someone who knows what a good deal looks like, you know.
Well, you and I are going to be talking after this podcast, because that's exactly what I'm doing over here, man. I've got a few people that are expert investors that said exactly what you just said, which, I mean, this is a good time to just kind of share that. You know, I completely agree with what you just said there. You got to stay in your lane. You can't be an expert at everything. I tell everyone, if you try to master everything, you'll be a master of nothing. And that
my wife tells me that too.
Yeah, and this is such a business. I talk about this all the time too. This is such a business of shiny object syndrome, where like literally there's a million different ways to make money. I just actually today I'm waiting for the contract to be sent back, but I may be getting a piece of land under contract, and the whole reason for that is just because of I needed to. It's right next door to a flip that I'm doing. It looks like absolute dog crap, and so this I finally found the owner of it, and he wasn't going to clean it anytime soon. So I said, what's it going to take for me to get this off your hands? I'm going to clean it myself, and just I'll figure out who the buyer is. But my point there is that, like, I've talked to people who invest in land, and that sounds super attractive. And then there's, the
Yep.
Airbnb thing, there's the wholesaling, there's every different angle of real estate investing. So that's why I really believe what you just said there. Align yourself with people that are experts rather than trying to be the expert.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I are going to talk about with Airbnb when this is all done. So,
Okay.
Dean, this has been an awesome, awesome interview. You've brought a lot of value to our listeners. I know that at the end of the day, there's so much that we could talk about, but I just really wanted people to be able to hear your story. I think the biggest thing that I take out of this is consistency, looking for opportunity, not waiting for opportunity to come your way. And also at the end of the day, just like being the guy that is adjusting to whatever the market looks like. And that's what
Yeah.
you've done. You haven't just stuck to one exit strategy. You've taken all these exit strategies, learned about them, been hungry, and you said obsessed, but I like to use the word hungry about learning. And you've just taken it to that level where, hey, I can see the market going this way. I've educated myself enough about rentals. Let's go into the rental side of things now. So kudos to you, man. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go here?
No, I think you captured it perfectly, Kyle. Just kind of like, what are probably some valuable takeaways. Everyone's going to have a different journey. You might find your first deal first week of just starting. You might take you a year to do it. Every journey is going to look different. The deals that you do, you might make a lot or a little bit of money. It's all about building that momentum and learning and just growing from that. And like you said, all the lessons and takeaways from it, and then listening to your gut and just doing what you think is right, trying to work with the right people, and then going back to the Fortune Builders guys and other companies or people that I've seen build successful, great companies that I aspire to be like, is building a culture. If you're a good person, and hopefully I'd assume all your listeners are, but if you're a good person and you want people to work hard for you and to enjoy working with them and them enjoy working with you, it's just about establishing that culture. We've been modeling other businesses that I've seen be successful. I mentioned Fortune Builders guys and other successful companies that we're aspiring to be like. And some of the things that they do is always establish what are their core values, right? What are the things that they stand for? What are the things that they're absolutely not gonna take and deal with? And so I've been putting that thought into our business, and as a result, we set up a company goal. And so for the first time in 2019, we put together a spreadsheet to show what's our company goal from a revenue standpoint, and then working down the numbers, like, okay, how many deals then do we have to do? What's the average profit have to be? What's the net profit based on, what's our overhead cost?
Reverse
Sharing that with
engineering
the
it.
team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now every time we get on, our weekly calls, it's, where are we at with our goal, for this month? And we're all focused on the same thing, and we're all compensated based on our performance too. Our acquisitions manager is compensated based on his performance of getting deals, right? Our office manager gets 1% of all net profits from the company.
Nice.
So and she gets, bonuses for deals that she closes. So we're all compensated and focused on the same mission, of making money and enjoying doing it. And another one of our goals that we put in place was going on a company trip. We just got back from Paso Robles on the Central Coast. We went to a resort for 3 days. We went zip lining, we went wine tasting.
Nice.
The whole first half of a Saturday we spent getting massages and just relaxing with our significant others. I mean, everyone was extremely appreciative. You could tell everyone was, excited to be a part of that. I know I certainly was. And for me, I can tell by creating that environment and modeling after the businesses that, I kind of mentioned, has made a huge impact too. So for anyone starting out, think about that. It's not all about the money. It's not all about, me. You can impact a lot of other people's lives and have fun, be extremely successful doing it. And, I think that's an important lesson for others too.
Hey, you don't get to where you're at today without impacting the number of people that you have, and also just creating that culture that obviously you not only have created, but it sounds like it's still evolving. So congratulations, Dean. Last thing, is there any way that our viewers and listeners can get in contact with you if they want to follow your journey or even ask you some questions?
Yeah. So most frequent people we talk to, aside from the day-to-day transactions, are going to be, wholesalers, real estate agents, private lenders. So if you're in those categories or any others and just want to, have a conversation, you can always easily reach me at my email, dean@homehelpersgroup.com. If you want to follow us on Instagram and just kind of stay up to date with what we're doing, you can follow us. Our handle is @homehelpersgroup. Easy to follow us there. And so would love to, answer questions or connect with anybody, who's got deals, who, is interested in private lending. We've always got stuff going on.
Perfect. Well, hey, you can add me to your buyers list. I would love to be on that. And then I'm just appreciative for you helping us and our viewers and listeners to conquer real estate investing today. Thank you so much, Dean.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
Show notes for this one, www.fearlessflipping.com/Dean, Dean, and you can get connected with Dean. You can get on his wholesaling list. As you saw, he's got a lot of wholesale deals going on. He's got a lot of rentals, but if you want to buy a deal that Dean is selling, you want to make sure to connect with him and get on his list. And I really want to just, at this point, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. This is our only episode of the week, so I hope you have a great one. Have lots of turkey, have lots of wine, have lots of gravy, whatever you do at Thanksgiving. I hope you have lots of it and have a great time. And after Thanksgiving, get back to conquering real estate investing.